Good afternoon, friends and viewers. Today is a very special day for us, and I'm really honored to be in the august presence of Dr. Sovan Roy, who has written already one book on fountain pen, an Indian fountain pen, a history of fountain pen, and is in the process of publishing many other books. He's a great person, a great scientist, and sir, I just want to know how you think about the fountain pen industry in India, the history and all other things.
Fountain pen history of this nation can be perceived in 4 to 5 phases. First phase, as far as known history is concerned, first phase starts from around 1900, beginning of the 20th century, and it continued up to 1930, that is the first phase. Second phase from 1930s to the end of 1950s, and the modern phase started, I mean, not in terms of technology, but in terms of use, popularity to users. In terms of that, it started around 1960s or beginning of 1960s or end of 1950s, and it lasted till 1980s, end of 1980s. Then ball pens took over for some period. It was a depression phase till 2000, and after 2000 the whole all the things regarding the fountain pen scenario of India was taken over by the enthusiasts, hobbyists. Fountain pen initially it gained the vintage status, and ultimately it again moved to antique phase. In the first phase, it was the golden phase, practically the first phase, because it was the Swadeshi phase. Including Radhikanath Saha, there were around 14-15 Swadeshi fountain pen industries in India during first 30 years. I am not going into details of the technicalities, the patents and the intellectual capabilities of Saha. Rather, holistically, along with Saha, many other industries created fountain pen in India. In northern part of India, in eastern part of India, in western part of India, rather say undivided India, including the portions of nowadays Bangladesh and Pakistan. That is the first phase. Second phase started since early 1930s. During that time, there were Swadeshi pens, there were imported pens, and mostly imported pens dominated the market because that was cheaper, technologically sound. Many imported pens were branded in India, and also many entrepreneurs started their venture during the second phase. Among them, one industry, that is Wilson, ultimately reached cardinal in the third phase and lasted for a long time. In the first phase, in India it was mostly ebonite pens, both Swadeshi and imported pens. In the second phase, celluloid pens started to dominate in the initial phase. Before that, ebonite pens were also there, and after some period of time, injection mold fountain pens, rather say plastic pens, appeared in the market. And during the end of 1950s, government imposed some restrictions regarding import of easy import of fountain pens and inks to encourage the flourishment of Indian industry, and it happened, and thus second phase culminated to the modern or third phase, when each and every literate person had one fountain pen. It flourished in schools and colleges, and cheap fountain pens were produced in India, so that it can meet up the demand and the capability of the buyers as well. So, from 1960s or late 1950s to 1980s, Indian inks, Indian pens flourished. Those were made of mostly plastics, and it was the climax of fountain pen use in India. As the ball pen started to dominate, I have said it earlier, during 1990s, the end of 1980s, the suppression phase began, and again in this century, at the beginning of this century, pen enthusiasts took the fountain pens as an item of hobby, an item of collection. The marvel of the writing instrument of the previous century started to fascinate the generation in the present century, and again the rejuvenation of the fountain pen industry happened in India, holding the hands of the collectors, and these collectors want to buy good pens, they have got capabilities to purchase. So, high end pens are being produced, but I will say that reverse engineered pens cannot reach to the golden phase. The golden phase was the first phase, when Shah with his patents created truly Indian Swadeshi fountain pens.
Dr. Rai, I just want to ask that after Dr. Radhikanath Shah, as you mentioned earlier, there was a lull in the inventions. Why did it happen for a country like us with so many talented people around? Why the fountain pen industry, although it had a number of users up to 80s, no one came forward and did some good things. I mean, did some innovations and other things which we find in European or American pens or even Japanese pens. So that was totally missing here in India. We did the reverse engineering, we just copied them, we just molded and turned the pens, seeing other pens. Why didn't new things didn't happen with the fountain pens?
It is a very good question. Shah died in 1933. Even before his death, he had some inventions, and those were filed for patenting in other nations, but ultimately probably could not be defended in his absence. As far as circumstantial evidences are concerned. So, the reason of our failure goes back to the bygone history of India. In ancient India, we had a great heritage of innovation in the field of science, education and everything. But as soon as casteism started to dominate our society, we did not keep respect for the artisans. They were suppressed to lower castes. It is one of the reasons they were not given due importance. They were oppressed class of this society. But in the history of innovation, in the history of technology innovation, artisans invented most of the things what we needed every day. So, the nations who promoted their artisans, who kept dignity for their artisans, were successful innovators. They flourished, they developed. You see, Dr. Shah has not been remembered by us. Despite of so many innovations in the fountain pen technology, none of us remember him. He has perished into oblivion, the deep dungeon, dark dungeon of oblivion. Actually, in India, we have been much dependent on the institutional academic society for innovation, but innovators came in the truest sense from the general society, maybe academic or non-academic. Radhikanath Saha did not come from academic society. He was a doctor, he was a practitioner, but he was a born innovator, inventor. So, if you want to get invention from the universities, you have to recruit inventors. A person cannot be compelled to do invention. He cannot be trained to do invention. Such ideas are inborn, but our vehement dependence on the academic institutions and our expectation that those who are recruited in academic institutions like universities etc., will invent is a great reason for failure. Although nowadays most of the inventions are highly technology dependent, but previously it was not so. Apathy of academicians to recognize inventors outside their domain, from outside their domain, who are working in other fields, is a reason for failure. Academy of Science, Academy of Technology, National Academy of Science and Technologies. There are several academies should recognize innovators from the normal general society. They can innovate. A very simple example, the great writers, the great novelists, the great poets, the creators rather say, most of them have not come from the universities, arts department or literature department. They have come from societies, general societies. Maybe they were later recruited in the university for their creations, they were invited. So, just like that, innovations cannot be dragged out from anybody. Just seeing the result of the examination, a good boy or a bad boy, and concluding and getting conclusion that if I recruit him or her, he will innovate, is a completely incorrect thing. So, we will have to change the look to get innovators in any field. We have to make such type of policy. And this is one of the reasons why we have failed. Radhikanath Saha is getting importance nowadays after his rediscovery in 2019, but before that nobody knew his name. Now it has been explained, and it has happened to many persons, not Saha. We should learn to recognize innovators, the champions of science and technology who are not in the academic sector, who are not recruited as scientists or professors, and that is the way to get the success in future.
It's a very fascinating and interesting what you said about these innovations and all these things. And coming from a person like you who is into looking into the academics from an academic institutions from a higher angle, I don't think it's I personally I never thought it like this, and what you said is very interesting, very interesting. Thanks a lot for that. The other thing I just want to just get your views, like in recent years, I mean in last 1 or 2 years, when we are moving to the younger generation, we are finding they are liking fountain pens. And when we are creating awareness, like from Sulekha, we are moving from school to school, we are creating column clubs, creating awareness. And the young kids of class 6 and 7 or 8 and 9, they are really appreciating, okay, it's fine, it's good. Um, how do you look at this? I mean, how do you look at this thing? That some kind of enthusiasm or awareness or some interest has is slowly getting created among young individuals.
There are some aspects, there are some angles for viewing such a thing. You see, with time everything will change, technology will change, nothing is fixed in this world. Language is not same. The Bengali language, what we speak nowadays, is not same what was spoken in 19th century. A Bengali language what we write nowadays is different from the 19th century. As my father had many manuscripts of 19th century. I cannot read those manuscripts in Bengali language. I cannot read those. My father could read it because it was his subject. Because change is spontaneous. it is gradual, you cannot stop change. So, technology, new and new technologies will come, and technologies will go to such a direction which will ensure ease of use, means writing instruments which will be easy, instruments that will be easy to use will be more popular, because most of the fountain pen users nowadays, as I have said before regarding the separation of time zone, most of the users nowadays who use fountain pen, they use for their passion, and passionate people or hobbies, they are trying to promote fountain pen use in the schools and colleges. Now, what happens? Children, they are habituated in writing, using a pencil, using normal use and throw pens nowadays, or gel pens, or such type of pens which are allowed in the school. So, once they get such an instrument, they are becoming more and more enthusiasts. It is charming them. Fountain pen, it has a nib, we are pouring liquid ink. So, they are getting more and more interest, because these are new things to them. But we did not have such type of interest, because from my birth, after my birth I saw my father using fountain pen. So, I did not have any charm. So, I also started using fountain pen and continued it till writing my PhD thesis, early 90s. My MSc examination was also given using fountain pen, and it was in my status during those days, Wing Sang was enough. It was a high status pen, Chinese Wing Sang. So, I used Chinese Wing Sang for my MSc examination and used the same pen. And during that same time, Bhairav Vishwakarma was a fountain pen maker of Varanasi, Malabazar workshop, and I used to get Bhairav Vishwakarma's pen. I threw those pens out, because those were not charming during those days. Nowadays, to children, to my son, it is a charming thing. They are fascinated, they are overwhelmed seeing a fountain pen. That is why they are getting much interest. Unless it becomes a spontaneous matter, unless it becomes a, unless these students, rather say students belonging to our society, take it spontaneously, usage will not increase. When I sign using a fountain pen in office, even senior persons who used fountain pens during their childhood, they look at it. They look at it, and it is a news that I use fountain pen. So, to bring something spontaneously will be very difficult. History loves repetition. If the thing is repeated, okay, nice, but it will be very difficult for fountain pen enthusiasts to start reusing fountain pen spontaneously to the students of all schools, all societies, because nowadays fountain pens are coming, these are more costly, technologically sound, and if students get such type of fountain pen, they can use it for some days, for some time with guardians' encouragement. But losing fountain pen in school is a very important issue. Costly fountain pens, if costly fountain pens are lost frequently, it will be difficult for guardians to buy costly fountain pens for their sons and daughters every time, and students come from all societies. Further, if you give them cheap fountain pens, inks will leak, and ultimately, like our time, hands will be full of, even pockets will be full of ink. So invariably they will leave the fountain pens, leave use of fountain pens, and again start use and throw fountain pens. So as a passion it is good, encouraging young generation it is good, they may use it once they are established, once they go to have higher education, for higher service, higher earning, they can buy fountain pens, and in that way it will survive. But using spontaneous fountain pens, because we did not have actually any substitute during that time, you just think, once the use and throw Reynolds came, many persons of us left fountain pens. Use and throw Reynolds, you probably remember, white colored pen and blue color cap.
It's still available now.
As I do not know whether it is available or not. So but I have kept the sample with me. So it will be difficult for
But
the society to sustain in such a way. If a fountain pen will also lose if it becomes spontaneous, if it becomes normal to everybody, it will lose its interest. It will not be an item of collection for the collectors, it will not be an item of passion for passionate people. So antique value and its vintage values, those will be lost. So fountain pens will only flourish as long as its antique values, its vintage values are associated with it in the years to come, time to come.
Sir, one more thing, you can get so many colors in fountain pens, and people are now sketching, doodling, journaling, and painting with fountain pen inks. And this is a novelty that
Yes, this is a novelty. Yes, of course, this is a novelty, and such things can increase to artists, particularly children, even for children, for artists, and the present generation youngsters who want to become artists. The fountain pen can become a separate media in future, medium, rather say.
Sir, slightly out of context, I am asking a question. When you are going from places to places and talking to the students, what we are facing is that students are asking us one question: are we allowed to use a fountain pen in the exam? Because many schools have said that no, you can't use a fountain pen in the exam, or someone is saying the board has said you can't use a fountain pen in the exam. So why it is like that? I mean, all of us grew up. You did your PhD thesis with a fountain pen. All of us grew up with a fountain pen. All the manuscripts are still there. Whoever has kept it, so it's as good as a use a dot pen or a gel pen. So that's the dilemma some students are facing. okay, I want to use a fountain pen, I can write with a pen, but will I be allowed during the exam? As a scientist, what's your view on this?
No, I have already answered this question. You see, during the first phase, ebonite pens were there, and after that celluloid pens came. From 1925, celluloid pens appeared in the world around 1935, and in India in 1930s. And even after that, till his death, Rabindranath Tagore used dip pens.
Yes.
He used fountain pens. He had many fountain pens. He bought fountain pens from Shah. I have got evidence. But we have many photographs and pictures. Tagore is and the time period is a fountain pen's time period, but he is using a dip pen because he was habituated from his childhood in using a dip pen. He found it easy. The work which you do every day becomes easy to you. And if the change is given to you, if a change is ultimately imposed to you, you will always try to stick to your habituation.
Right, sir.
Now, here also in this particular aspect, when children are asking, the thing comes again about technology. If the ink does not scatter, when you are filling OMR sheet, and if ink scatters, the OMR sheet will be spoiled, and the computer will not be able to identify what you have ticked. So, ultimately you will have to stick to a particular pen which gives an ink which dries up, and even after if water is given on it, the ink does not scatter. So, again comes to the technological matter.
OMR sheet, they are now saying that you use a pencil because sometimes you want to erase and
Okay,
code, yeah.
okay.
They are not using pens in the OMR sheet. They are using pencils.
No, pens are also used.
Pencil used, but they are not using. They are now being suggested that use the pencil while filling up OMR sheets. But in the exam, where you are writing, where there are no
During our time in examination, fountain pen was compulsory.
compulsory, right?
You cannot use a ball pen. It was compulsory. So, we could not use ball pen in examination hall. Ultimately, in MSCs, I found that okay, ball pens, all are using ball pens, I am only using fountain pen.
So scientifically, there is no point in arguing that.
Now, the only one thing, there is one possibility that if water is poured on it, it may scatter. That is the thing. Otherwise, it is okay. It is okay. Another thing, there is another thing which happened during what it did not happen. I never found such type of thing, but the pointed nib may be a weapon during fighting. Okay.
Okay,
So,
but in that sense, dot pens are worse.
the dot pens are also dot pens also got to do the same thing. Even high tech point also can do the same thing. So, okay, it is a matter of technology, mindset. Time takes control spontaneously. Everything is changed spontaneously, despite you may want to stop something, you may go for agitation, but what is there, what was there 50 years back in every aspect, in every angle, in every situation, everything, not only fountain pen, in everything that is not existing. Time takes its own control, things change. Our life, our world, whatever we have made is dynamic, we cannot make anything static. History loves repetition. If fountain pen returns, it may return, okay, then if it returns, it will be again abolished. So, in this way,
so you are optimistic.
I am optimistic. Okay, I am always optimistic. No means always no. No means never. I am never no.
You are never.
Okay. There are clauses, there are preconditions in many things, but in every aspect, in all aspect in life, I am always positive.
And so
I am yes.
You are also positive about the fountain pens.
And I am positive about everything.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear.
I have got a big collection of
we are
it.
going to have a shot of all these things soon. And thanks a lot, Dr. Rai.
Thank you.
Fantastic things and very encouraging things you have said, and many new things, new insights. I believe our viewers will be greatly benefited from what we have learned today from him, who has been doing research on fountain pen industry for quite a long time, and he has brought out Aren Shaha from the black hole, if I may say so. uh, Suddenly the interest has been created in the entire country. Who was Dr. Aren Shah? Why didn't we hear his name earlier? And all credit goes to Dr. Sovan Roy for doing all this research work, and we are looking forward to your next book, which will be coming soon, we believe. And in the
Its second edition will come and a Bengali book will come.
oh, that's great. And in the Calcutta Book Fair, it will be available.
Yes.
That's a fantastic thing to hear. Thanks a lot, Doctor.
Thank you.